Carl, everybody's been clamoring for this fight for months. Even before last week, when a fellow countryman of yours lost to an American in D.C. Did you watch that fight? And that fight, you know, Gareth was there and some other people talking about Lamont Peterson and Amir Khan. And, you know, some of us at ringside, in terms of the skill set and the action, we're saying this, you know, could be kind of a fight of the year candidate. But obviously this fight with you and Ward has been one that people have been looking for. Do you think that last week's fight and some of the things surrounding that and the level that it took kind of is a perfect jumping off point for this fight?
Is that quite a deep technical question, or am I looking into it too much?
Yeah, but you're good at that.
Let me think about how I answer this one. That was a great fight for the fans, great fight for the broadcasters, great fight to watch. And obviously anything that brings attention to the sport is good for the sport, good for boxing. And with my fight being so close, you know, it's obviously a positive thing. The result wasn't the result that the British fans wanted, and it wasn't the result that I wanted. As I come from the UK, you know, but what happened. It was a great fight. It was a close fight. In my opinion, you couldn't really argue about the decision, but the fight could have gone either way. It was that, you know, Peterson did a fantastic job. Amir Khan did a great job, and it was very entertaining night's work by both men in there. You know, Khan took the chance or risk or whatever you want to call it of going to his backyard, and that's part and parcel of fighting. I fought Mikhail Kessler in his backyard. You know, I've got no complaints about a decision. I can be quoted as saying, I think the fight could have gone either way, and I could have won the fight if it would have been here. But it's just buts and maybes. I lost the fight fair and square to a guy that's a great fighter. You know, Mikhail Kessler is world class. He's an elite level fighter. So I don't worry about that loss, because I grew a lot of confidence and learnt a lot from that defeat, and came back in my very next fight to become WBC world champion. But no, of course, it sets the stage, it sets the scene for this big showdown on Saturday night, which is something I and everybody else should be looking forward to.
How much did the delay because of the cut, how much did that set back your training, if at all? Did you have to just take time off and start from scratch, or did you just keep going? And was there a danger of like peaking too soon because you were ready for an October fight, and now it's...
All I did was take a week off. I had a week away with my family, Rachel and Rocco, my little boy. A total week of doing nothing, just relaxing, which was nice. We went away somewhere together. We actually had a heat wave in England that week as well, which made it an even better week. And then I just sort of ticked over for a week, just steadily got back into my training. So when you're of an elite level and you're a top athlete and your body's in great shape, having a week off or 2 weeks off is actually beneficial, because you're able to switch off mentally, physically give your bones, your joints and your skeletal muscle a rest, and then you can get back on it with a fresh mindset. And that's what we did. Me and Rob got back in the gym after 2 weeks, and we were straight back sharper than where I was before because of the little rest. So I welcome the rest. The only thing that upset me about that delay was the fact that my fans had booked a load of tickets to come on the 29th of October, and it hit them financially in their pocket. And in you know, with the economic climate the way it is, it's not ideal, but they've got over that. They're being looked after tomorrow by Eddie Hearn, my promoter Matchroom, and two of my sponsors, Lonsdale and One True Saxon, are putting together a party for all the travelling fans. All you can eat and all you can drink. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they tally up.
How many fans are you expecting?
We're expecting
hopefully
close.
10. We're paying for it.
I reckon there's going to be close to 1,000, which is unbelievable really, because it's close to Christmas, and it's over the Atlantic, and it's, you know, it's a big commitment for everybody. I mean, I can probably, you know, close family, friends, and people I know from Nottingham and my area, and even Birmingham and Manchester and Sheffield where I train. The people that I know personally, there's probably going to be 150, 200, so that's a lot of noise in a group. And then there's obviously the fans that I don't get to meet or see. I only get to sort of, you know, be in touch with them through the social network, Twitter.
Were there a lot of fans that weren't able to make it because of the rescheduling?
Yeah.
Did they,
definitely, yeah. A few fans had to sort of bite the bullet and say, okay, I've cut my losses, and they can't come. 17th of December, and people have got families and commitments.
It's a terrible date for a fight, you know, in terms of selling it a week before Christmas. You know, it's but that's what it is. So Dan Goossen's done a good job in, you know, it's a big fight, so people still want to see it. But a week before Christmas is never ideal. So.
You talked about you know, Khan losing last week and it not being the result that the Brits wanted. Are you hearing anything from any of your fans or his fans, or collectively from Britain, do this for us? People getting more behind you than they already were.
Yeah, there tends to be a little bit of emphasis and a bit of pressure on me restoring the pride in British boxing, but it's all part and parcel of it. I'm the last man standing in this tournament, and I suppose I'm the last man standing this year in terms of fighting overseas.
How is that for you? Do you embrace that, or
I embrace it, and I like the pressure. I thrive on pressure. I like the feeling of adrenaline, and when you get nervous and you get pressure or apprehension, whatever you want to call it, it gives your blood a little boost of adrenaline and makes you shake and makes you feel a bit like, I don't know, it feels good. I like it. It's sharpen me up, make me strong, make me go for longer. I mean, I'm a 12-round fighter anyway. I'm probably a 15-round fighter. I'd have preferred it if the fights were 15 rounds. I'd have certainly got a couple more stoppages. But it's a 12-round sport, and you've got to be fit and strong. And sometimes that bit of adrenaline boost before you get in the ring helps, as long as you don't start getting too apprehensive too early. And this is why I'm relaxed, confident, and just keeping my mind away from the fight until fight night.
So when does the adrenaline boost start?
We'll switch on in the changing rooms. Well, I switch on, and Rob knows what to do. We have a little chat. We wrap up. We get ready mentally, and then I step through the ropes. Rob steps out the ropes. I do my job. Rob does his job. We both do our job fantastically, and as a team, we'll do what we need to do to win on Saturday night.
Do you feel like you've gotten credit for the litany of tough fights that you've had, starting with the Pascal fight, number one, and then secondly, do you feel like you've gotten credit for your overall ability, boxing, punching, just your overall skills?
Yeah, I think it's wonderful, because I'm now getting the recognition and the credit I deserve from the British people. I mean, this is an American tournament put together by an American broadcaster, so I've always been acknowledged and received very well by the American public. I love coming over to the States. I've trained now twice in New York. I've boxed in America 3 or 4 times, and it's a wonderful place. The people are great. They've embraced me as one of their own. I walk around New York and I get spotted by the NYPD and people in the hotels and people across the road, the cab companies. They all know who I am, so it's fantastic. And I'm now getting, I've always been big in my hometown, but I'm now getting national recognition in London and Sheffield and Birmingham. So up and down the country, I'm now getting acknowledged, which is fantastic.
Why did that take, what do you feel that took so long? Why?
Well, it's about exposure and profile. And I'm now getting the exposure and the profile I need to get that sort of recognition.
Was it, I don't want to compare Khan and Hay, were they getting more of it? Or?
David Hay's a heavyweight, so that doesn't count. Heavyweight boxing isn't like any other weight division in boxing. Heavyweight, there's boxing, and then there's heavyweight boxing, and then there's soccer or American football or whatever. And say heavyweight boxing's always been bigger. Mike Tyson and Holyfield, and if you ask somebody to name a fighter who doesn't really follow boxing at all, the first name they'll chuck out to you is Mike Tyson. He's a heavyweight, or Muhammad Ali, because of the heavyweight sport. Amir Khan got a big profile from day one because he was a young, talented kid. At 17, he won an Olympic medal, and Britain got behind him from day one because of that. And rightly so, to go to the Olympics and win a medal, it's a fantastic achievement at that age. So he was put on a pedestal from day one. He was fast-tracked to the top, and he's been given the profile and the recognition immediately. I've had to come through the hard way. I won a world title, and people didn't necessarily know the fight was happening. It was quite late. Then I came over to America to fight Jermaine Taylor, and it was broadcasted on a time delay the next day. And then I entered this wonderful tournament, the Super Six World Boxing Classic, and I was on a sub-pay-per-view channel in Britain. Unless you know that channel's there, which 95% of people didn't know it was there, and then the people that do know it was there, do they want to pay to watch it? In the current economic climate, not many people tune in. So you get tens of thousands of viewers, as opposed to millions on terrestrial television, and that all goes towards the reason that my profile and my my publicity hasn't been quite what it should. But like I say, it's there now, and it feels great to now finally get the recognition I deserve.
Where does your popularity? I asked you this before the Glenn Johnson fight, I think. But where does your popularity stand, like in terms of, like, say, Ricky Hatton at his peak?
Ricky Hatton was phenomenal from publicity and promotion point of view. I mean, I think he'd got somebody in his family played for Manchester City, and football, or soccer as you call it, in England is the biggest sport in the country. It dominates the papers every day. 8 pages inside sport, every single paper from back 8 pages in. It's it's the sport for profile and publicity and recognition to be involved in. And Ricky Hatton had some connection with Man City. He was the people's champion, as I am, but with that fact that he had the Man City link from day one, people in Manchester just embraced him and got behind him. And his fight with Costa Zoo was a crossover fight for him, and that made him massive. You know, from then on, he's been a real big deal. So you can't really compare Ricky Hatton with any other fighter in the world, or in Britain at least at that time, other than, I don't know, maybe Prince Nassim Hamed when he was at the top of his game, and maybe Chris Eubank, because you know the general public took to him, but he was fighting on terrestrial television, pulling in 14 million viewers on television when television only had channel 1 to channel 4, so there was 4 TV channels to watch. So you know, if you do your math, 25% of the population's got to be watching one channel at least at one time, and if Chris Eubank's fighting, everybody tunes in, and Matchroom promoted him at the time, and I think that helped, and we've got 14 million viewers, so that's why it became massive. But you know, other than Ricky Hatton, and if we'll go back in the days to Chris Eubank, and currently Amir Khan and David Hay, there's myself, and I'm up there, and it's great, and it's wonderful.
3 years ago, Carl fought on network TV 3 years ago on ITV, which is terrestrial TV as we call it. 5 million viewers watched you beat Jean Pascal, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was close to that.
3
Yeah,
years ago,
yeah, it was quite
5
late at night, half 11, 12 o'clock at night.
And, you know, it was really well received. And then, unluckily for you, you went through a period of time where you didn't have the right TV deal in the UK. I mean, you were still getting coverage in the mainstream media. Do you think that the fact you didn't have a TV deal, and perhaps the right promoter till now, kind of taking you to perhaps Sky Sports, which is our biggest kind of network for boxing, that's kind of perhaps held back, you know, slightly your name in what you were saying, not in terms of what you've achieved.
Well, there's a question there regards TV and promotion, so I think I'll pass that one over to Eddie to answer.
I just think that the whole package with Sky, as you know, it's what they bring with the party. I mean, the hype that they've given this fight over the last month, particularly this week, you know, and that's what you look at channels like Primetime, like Box Nation. All those fighters are suffering. You know, anyone who fights on the smaller pay-per-view channels are going to suffer. Their exposure is going to suffer. And I think the problem with boxing, and the problem that the UK fans have had with boxing, is every UK boxer talks a great fight, and none of them have been delivering, really. And with Carl, there's someone that always delivers, 100% of the time. You always know what you're going to get with Carl Froch, and that's the difference in a time where, you know, people are struggling economically or whatever excuse you want to get, but you know what you're going to get. So you know you're going to get value for money. And I think fans in the UK, I don't know the fans over here, but fans in the UK are sick and tired of hype around a fight that doesn't deliver. And there's been too many, you know, I mean, there's been too many of those in the UK. But
who does he appeal to? He says he's, and I was a little surprised when he said he's more received in America. I mean, I know when I saw him against Taylor, you know, yeah, I was definitely, you know, liked him, but then I appreciated it more as I saw his boxing ability, and he kept talking about it, and then he showed it. Why was he more appreciated, do you feel, in America, and who does he appeal to? Who is his core?
Well, appreciation comes from exposure and numbers. So when you're fighting in America, you've got huge numbers on TV watching those fights. It's such a shame that not as many people got to see the Jermaine Taylor fight in the UK, because it was one of the greatest fights I've ever seen. And the finish just shows what Carl Froch is all about. But again, it boils down to numbers. When Carl Froch was fighting on prime time in the Super Six, they might do 5, 6, 7, 10,000 buyers. 10,000 people in the UK watching that fight. It's unacceptable. You know, and you can't base a profile on that amount of people watching a fight. It's impossible. And of course, with the channel, the build-up to the fight, you know, Sky Sports has a platform of 4 channels and a news channel. They're running every hour. They're running at the moment 5-10 minutes on Carl Froch continuously. The website, the national media have really embraced it. So it just boils down to, you know, volume of the audience. And
how many people will watch this one?
I would say it will peak at about 500,000 in the UK, something like that, which will be massive for Sky at that time in the morning. You know, Amir Khan's figures were very good last week. You know, but with all due respect to Amir Khan, he doesn't operate at the level that Carl Froch operates at. He's a great fighter, you know, and I'm sure he'll be back to do more in the sport. But let's be honest, when you talk about levels and opponents, you look at Carl Froch's record, it's not even comparable. And it's just time, you know, like I said, people are starting to see. This week on Sky Sports, they ran all the Super Six fights that Carl Froch has been involved with, and the response has been unbelievable. Wow, I didn't even know he had those fights. Did you see the fight with Kessler? Oh, what about the fight against... You know, it's unbelievable. You think that people haven't seen it. You know, and now they're seeing it and they're realising, wow, this guy's... And it's refreshing, and we don't look to the past. People say, oh, do you think you're finally getting the exposure? Why didn't you get the exposure before? Forget about that. It's about the now. And now he's getting it, and it feels great, and I think it spurred him on because the support he's getting from back home is unbelievable.
Have you already had your crossover fight, or is this it?
I've had probably about 5 fights that you could consider a crossover fight in terms of performance and capturing the public's imagination and them embracing me. But back to the boring old job story of I didn't get the exposure that I needed for that to be embraced and captured. But this will most certainly be the one, provided I do what I know I can do on Saturday night. This is the fight that can make me an international superstar, without doubt, because it doesn't get any bigger than that. You know, fighting somebody who's undefeated. You all know what Andre Ward's got and what he's done and how good he is. And everybody already knows what I'm capable of and what I can do on my given night. You know, I've only got 1 loss on my record, and there's always reasons for loss. I mean, Andre Ward likes to call them excuses. They're not excuses. I give fans reasons, and when I get asked a question, I do the honour of answering that question in the best way I see fit. There's no excuses when Mikel Kessler's concerned. There's no shame into dropping a points decision against a man like Mikel Kessler, especially in the manner in which I conducted myself in that ring, the way in which I fought him. You know, it gave the broadcasters and the fans and everybody who follows me for them reasons great pleasure. And thankfully nobody came out with any serious injuries, although Kessler retired after the fight. He's back on his feet and he's back in the mix, and hopefully he'll fight another day. I spoke to him a couple of days ago actually, and we spoke about a rematch, Kessler and myself. I'll leave that one to the promoters. But no, it's all going very well, and this is the biggest fight to happen in my career. I'm certainly in the super middleweight division for years and years.
Can I ask Rob McCracken a question? Rob, talking about exposure and recognition and stuff for Carl, you're a great student of boxing. You know, you boxed your world title yourself, and highly respected in the UK. Carl's run that he's just been on, is there another British boxer in the last 30 years who's gone on that kind of run, that many fights in a row against that level of opponents and not received the kind of...
No, in a nutshell, no. I think he's been treated pretty poorly. I know we're sitting here talking about exposure and stuff, and I know Eddie knows a lot more about the television side of the sport than myself, but I just think all of these TV companies in the UK, and whoever was, in charge of boxing on whatever channel, if it was me, I would have thought he's just beat Jim Pascoe in an absolutely unbelievable fight. I need him on I need him on my channel, and the same after the Jermaine Taylor fight. Somebody's not watching, somebody hasn't been watching. Luckily, Eddie's in the middle of things now, moving things on fantastically well. But I'm well documented on how I feel about how the late Carl Froch has been treated by the television in the UK. I think it's a pretty poor show.
But has any other fighter gone on that series of fights in a row?
No. In answer to your question,
back to back Ken Buchanan in the 70s, or where would you?
I mean, you're going back a long way. I know Ken Buchanan topped the bill at Madison Square Garden 5 or 6 times. So you're going back to the Ken Buchanan days. But in the last 20, 30 years, no, for sure. Lennox Lewis had some great opponents and a great resume, but not back to back what Carl Froch has done. So I think you're going back to the Ken Buchanan days.
I don't think he wants easy fights, to be honest with you. I mean, back in the Eubank days and the Naz days, we used to get away with some outrageous fights. Yeah, but that was always the plan. But Ian, not being funny, but that was the plan from a promoter, wasn't it? You don't have tough fights. It's a money machine. It's a factory. It's a cash cow. You take them away. You put on big shows. You give great entertainment to the fans. Doesn't mean you've got to have a war every time. But we've spoken. Said, wouldn't it be nice to have an easy fight after this? But I can't see that happening. I don't think he'd get up for it in the same way after what he's been through. And like I say, Butte or Kessler, they're the kind of fight. Every fight then is going to be a unification fight, and there is no easy unification fights. But like you say, you sometimes think, wouldn't it be nice? Let's just go to Nottingham and fight a bum and get them put on a great show. But I don't think that's going to happen with Carl Froch. I don't think that's what it's about. And I think he wouldn't get himself up for it in the same way if he knew he had an easy night.
I was about to say that I draw my motivation from the fact that I'm fighting people of an elite level. Early on in your career, you're obviously brought through steadily, and you fight a couple of what we call journeymen that are expected to lose. They obviously present different problems, but once you get to the top level, I feel you obligated to give the fans and the broadcasters, you're committed to them, to give them what they deserve. That's just my feeling. If you don't, then at some point you'll just be left alone, and your career will be over, or nobody will be interested. Nobody will be interested in watching you fight.
Being true to yourself. Yeah?
Exactly, yeah. When I retire, I can look back and say I fought the best of the best.
We know that, we know now, everyone knows kind of now, a lot of people, the quality fighter you are. And I know you got to fight Saturday night, but back when you were calling out Calzaghe, I don't think people were taking you seriously. And now, I mean, I haven't heard Butte say your name as a potential opponent. Can you comment on, what you were looking for when you were trying to get Calzaghe, and what, how serious you were now then?
Well, I've proved by the level of fights I've been fighting time after time, which we spoke about for 15 minutes. I've proved that when I called Joe Calzaghe out, I was serious about wanting to fight him. If he turned around and says, "Okay, let's get the fight on," I was going to say, "Oh, right, you know what, I've got a bad leg, or my hand's hurting," and pull out the fight. I would have turned up in Cardiff, in his hometown, and boxed him with a belief that I would have beat him. And I'm totally, I can acknowledge and be honest and say that if the fight would have gone to points, it could have been a fight I could have lost, because Joe Calzaghe had a phenomenal work rate. He was a great fighter. He retired undefeated, and if the fight would have gone the distance in his hometown, potentially I would have not got the decision. But I would have gone into that fight thinking I'm going to knock him out, put it on him, hurt him, and get the decision I want, whether it be by points, because I've been putting it on him so hard, or get the knockout, because I feel that he was there ready for the taking. When I was knocking on the door for the WBC #1 challenger, he was WBC champion. It's not like I was asking him to do me a favour and give me a voluntary defence. I was actually mandatory for his belt, so let's get the fight on, let's do it. I wasn't just coming through the rankings, calling out his name for the sake of publicity or profile, which is what people got the wrong end of the stick of. That was misconstrued. I was mandatory for his belt. He vacated the title. I then fought the guy that's Jean Pascal, and he proved what he is when he went and beat Chad Dawson and had a great fight with Hopkins. But it was a disappointing evening when he lost to Hopkins for everybody, except for Hopkins and Team Hopkins. But he's phenomenal fighter, Hopkins, and brilliant what he's achieved. But we won't go into that because we'll be here another 25 minutes.
For the record, do you think that Calzaghe avoided you, or?
I think Calzaghe did the right move and made the right decisions for himself, for his family, and financially as well. He took a fight with Roy Jones Jr. and Bernard Hopkins. Did he earn more money for them two fights? Who knows? Did he get paid for both them fights? I think we all know. But that's not the issue here. The issue is, I feel he should have fought me because he was mandatory, and I think you're obligated to fight your mandatory challenger. And this is another reason why I feel it's fitting that I'm fighting Ward in the final, because I watched him box a guy called Edison Miranda a couple of years ago, and his interview after that fight, he can be quoted as saying, "I believe I'm now #1 for Kyle Froch, so let's get it on." And that was his words, and I thought, okay, who's this guy, Andre Ward? So I was ready to fight him for my next before or after Jermaine Taylor. It's probably around about the Jermaine Taylor fight time. I was ready to come to America and fight Andre Ward, next best in line. I don't look at an opponent and worry about him and get any concern with, oh, is this, is that, is the other. Me and Rob get in the gym, we have a conversation that lasts about 5 minutes at the start of the camp, and then we'll work on what we need to work on to win the fight. Tactically, I leave it to Rob, and I just make sure I put the work in. And if I'd have fought Ward 2 years ago,
I know that you certainly expected to be at this point. Are you surprised that you're fighting Ward in the final of this? Like when it first started, did you?
No, I can probably be quoted from the beginning saying I feel I'm going to meet Mikkel Kessler or Andre Ward in the final. Depending on the outcome of their fight, will probably be the deciding factor on who I fight. And it's panned out how I thought it would. I did actually think Kessler would beat Ward, but watching the way in which Mikkel Kessler performed when he fought Ward in Oakland that night, there was no way he was going to win the fight. He was a really poor Mikkel Kessler turned up that night, and that's not trying to take anything away from Andre Ward, because Andre Ward did what he had to do to win. But watch Kessler's performance against Ward, then watch Kessler's performance against me, and there's two different animals in there.
What do you think that is?
Well, I just think that he boxed once in 13 months against a journeyman, which was like a sparring session. He flew out to Oakland 2 weeks before, which is West Coast, which isn't long enough. And he took Ward lightly. And then during the fight, I don't want to bring up what happened in terms of the way in which the fight and the contest happened, and the cuts and tactics and styles and clashes and all sorts of rubbish that went off. It's fighting, that's what happened. But There's 101 reasons why Mikel Kessler didn't perform and didn't win on that night.
After Butte, well, it was early in the tournament, but after Butte fought Andrade, I remember on a conference call, you took some shots at Butte and said he's not in this tournament because he doesn't basically belong here. And like I said, I don't hear him calling your name as an opponent. Do you still feel the same way?
Most definitely. There's 2 names on Andre Ward's record, other than that of LeBron Andrade, and that's Brian McGee and Glenn Johnson on Butte's record. Other than LeBron Andrade, who you've mentioned, but let's not forget LeBron Andrade knocked out Lucian Butte in the 12th round of their contest. You've got 10 seconds to get yourself ready to carry on fighting, and he didn't make it inside the 10 seconds, and then his gum shield came out, and that took 30 seconds to clean, and then they started the fight, and the bell was rung. So he lost that fight by knockout, but he won on points. You see what I'm saying? And that's what happens in boxing. You go to someone's hometown, you got all the backing of the promoters and that, and he's a big deal in Canada. Butte is. So that's one of his fights, and the other 2 was Brian McGee, somebody who I knocked out 6 years ago, and I broke my hand in round 2 in that fight. I got a Bennett's fracture, and I had to have this pinned. I knocked him out around 11. That fight would have gone a lot sooner. McGee, no disrespect to McGee, he's a decent level operator, and he's recently performed at European level, but he's not of the elite level that we're all fighting at. And then Johnson, his friend, did they have a sparring session? Did they ever move around for 12 rounds? I mean, everybody was bored to tears and nobody got excited. I don't think anybody would be resetting the DVD player and hitting play to sit down and watch that with a box of popcorn, will they? Because it wasn't an entertaining fight, it was boring. So
You feel like you gave him the blueprint?
So that's, well, whether I give him the blueprint or not, the question was, is Butte of this level and does he belong in this level and do I stand by it? Yes, I do stand by it. I don't think he belongs in this level because he's not fought anybody. There's no names that I can mention unless you can enlighten me on the subject of Lucian Butte being ranked #1 with the Boxing Monthly. I'd like that justifying above myself, Ward, Kessler, and Boxing Monthly is a British magazine. I don't want to give an individual magazine any harassment or stick, but they've got him at #1. So you tell me where that's justified. I don't know. I'm struggling.
How can you be
Ideally,
#1 if you haven't boxed anybody? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't be. Can't be.
And also, Carl fought a motivated Glenn Johnson. A Glenn Johnson that was 1 step away from the Super Six final and changing his life again.
Walking
Yeah.
forward from round 1 till
So-
about round 10. And then against Butte, he was back footing, jabbing and moving, but not very easy night's work for Butte. Milking that cow, fair play to him, carry on. But I'm a proud man, I'm a warrior.
Ideally, without giving away your strategy, obviously, how do you think this fight will unfold, and how do you want it to unfold on Saturday night?
I want it to unfold. I want to hit him on the chin with in about 30 seconds of round 1 and render him unconscious. Because then I've got no risk of getting any perforated eardrums, sore ribs or any ring tear. So that's ideally what I want. Given the option, I think that'd be option A, but I'm realistic. This is world-class, elite level fighting. There's very, very little to separate these top-level fighters. Andre Ward's probably coming here before me and told you I was going to beat me and outbox me and outclass me, and his trainers probably said I'm going to get hit more often than I've ever been in my whole career. And maybe talk about running rings around me, but I'm honest enough to sit here and say at an elite level, at top level that we're all fighting at, there's very, very little that separates us. There's small little points. We're just as fit, our heart rates are just as slow, we're just as physically strong. We don't punch the same. People punch hard, some people punch weak, that's a fact. I'm a big puncher, he's not a big puncher. That's going to be a deciding factor in this fight. That's going to definitely make the fight, because if I didn't punch very hard, I'd be standing off boxing and he'd be boxing and we'd be moving around and it'd be a bit of a boxing match. And it could be a boxing match that, I'd struggle in, because he's very skillful, he's an Olympic gold medalist, that's his game. My game is to go close quarters and try and land some big shots. But I've proven I can box. Look at the performance I did against Arthur Abraham. Look at Glenn Johnson when I was switched on. Look at the performance there. And Andre Durrell, he's so fast and skillful. I don't want to give Andre Durrell any stick. He's a fast, skillful fighter. He's an Olympic medalist. He's a talent, and I cope with him quite simply by just doing what we knew what we needed to do in terms of distance and timing and movement and a good straight long jab. And he had height and reach on me, Durrell did. Andre Ward hasn't. So there's a number of ways in which I can beat Ward, but boxing's boxing, and at top level, these fights are close. And
What'd you learn from the Kessler fight? I mean, I know that night it seemed maybe early on that you gave a little bit of ground and then, you know, played some catch up, but you know, I don't know if that interpretation's accurate.
Yeah, that's accurate.
What did you? Yeah,
That's
go ahead.
accurate. Yeah, no, that's accurate. What he learned from is that he wasn't ready for the fight. It's me talking. I was in his house on the Wednesday. I advised him not to go to Denmark, not to take the fight. He wasn't mentally ready for 3 days. He convinced himself, and the you know, pretty much the feedback coming back was that the fight probably wasn't going to go ahead because of the disastrous travel situation.
we'd planned to go out 10 days early just to stop me there, and the flight was cancelled.
The travel situation, and Carl, we go over 3 weeks before to the States whenever he boxes. He's a different kind of character to most people. He needs to settle in somewhere, and 2 nights sleep in Denmark. Carl Froch won't be ready to fight, which I knew that on the Wednesday. He felt because of the way, you know, the media thing was in the UK and stuff, I think more so that it would cause him even more issues and take even longer to get the credit and the attention that he's now getting, and he was a little bit worried and concerned about that, and he decided to
Tournament obligations as well.
You know, and it would drag on too long. He said, look, it's going to take me forever to get to where I want to get to. I've got to go through with it. So basically that was it. He boxed slow early on, you're dead right, got off to way too a slow start, then he started to get going. Totally agree with you. If he'd have got going from round 1 instead of from round 4,
Especially gave the crowd time to get
and then the
behind
crowd
Kessler.
can start getting, and then you know, shots hitting the elbow and the gloves, which was happening a lot from Mikhail. Carl was landing the cleanest shots. The crowd cheers him on, etc. in his hometown. But basically there were issues going in. What I learned was when he's 75%, he can still put in a performance like that against a boxer among the very best in the world. On any other given day, we're very confident that Carl will stop Mikhail.
Carl, do you believe, given the timeline of the tournament, that Ward may have returned a little too soon with the cut? And do you think it changes his game plan? Or will he be more tentative, knowing that cut's there and could open at any time?
I don't know Ward well enough. I don't know his character or his personality well enough. But what I do know of him, I do think that he's tough, he means business, he's confident. So I don't think the cut's going to affect him mentally. He will be thinking about it, but when his head hits the pillow at night, I don't know. The fairy godmother probably knows, but I don't know what he's thinking. Will that affect his performance? All he can do is go on his back foot a little bit more and use his jab and try and keep out of harm's way. It's my job to put him in harm's way. You know, I'm gonna be trying to hit him often. So, but the other question was, will the cut be healed? I think the cut will be well healed. Yeah, the cut heals up quick. I mean, I've had cuts 2 weeks before a fight and gone ahead, not with 7 stitches, probably not as deep as what Ward had, but I've been cut and bruised. And my philosophy is you can get cut during the fight, you know, anyway, early on. What are you going to do about it? You get your cuts man to sort it out, and hopefully it's going to be sorted for the rest of the fight. So I don't think it's going to be of any detriment really to Andre Ward or his performance, the fact that he's got a cut above the right eyebrow, what was it, 10 weeks ago? No, I don't think it's going to bother him. But I hope it opens up. Why not?
It goes longer than 30 seconds.
Why not? He might as well open up, yeah.